All right, welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you for another episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all having a great Monday. We got a Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight. It's going to be Buffalo playing Jacksonville and then Washington and Cincinnati. All right. Got a couple of 0-2 teams. Got the Bills at 2-0. I do think the Bills will remain undefeated. And I do think the Bengals will get their first win of the season tonight. So we can maybe get into that a little later on tonight. But some things to get into here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Going to be talking about the reactions from Sunday Night Football as the Chiefs improved to 3-0. They are one of 4 3-0 teams, one of 5 undefeated teams. Like I mentioned earlier, the Bills, they have a chance to remain undefeated and become the 5th team to go 3-0 on the season. So we'll touch on that a little bit. And also go into the Chiefs, some of the reactions from that. Patrick Mahomes, some of his comments are getting talked about a lot in terms of wanting to improve. We also got to have a conversation about Rashee Rice. Not that there hasn't been one, but I think with his emergence right now, and, you know, we're at a point right now where, okay, it's still early in the season. We're still kind of in the honeymoon phase of, yeah, football's back. But once you reach week 3, you kind of know who's really good, who's not, who's in the middle, in terms of teams that are 1-2 or 2-1, teams that maybe have a chance to improve, especially if you're 1-2. But you kind of know who's good and who's not at this point. And Rashee Rice, boy, the numbers for him are staggering good. To the point where he's actually leading the NFL in some categories. That's how good he is right now. The Chiefs had Tyreek Hill, who was great, and not taking anything at all from Tyreek Hill. I just don't recall if Tyreek Hill ever led the Chiefs in a specific category. And by the way, it's difficult for what Tyreek Hill was doing in Kansas City because he was sharing the field with an all-pro tight end in Travis Kelce. So it's very difficult to be a pass catcher for the Kansas City Chiefs and try to be number 1 in the NFL in a pass catching category. That's very difficult to do. So to see Rice emerge like this, it is great to see. So we definitely got to talk about that. And we'll also do the week 3 roundup here. I figured it might be much easier to do Monday podcasts on nights where the Chiefs are not playing on a Monday. That way we can do the week 3 roundup on a Monday episode and not do that on a Wednesday episode when we do our breakdown and preview of the upcoming game. And if there's anything big or significant that happens on Monday Night Football, yeah, we can discuss it on the Wednesday podcast. So that'll be much easier to do. Auntie Vic says hello, watching from Overland Park. Shout out to Overland Park. I lived there for 15 years. Greatest time of my life. By the way, before we get started here, Eric, I see your comment about Brock Purdy on the MRI with back spasms or whatever it is he's dealing with. So some sort of back injury. They're saying he's day-to-day, so I don't think this is anything to the point where Miami fans, or I'm sorry, not Miami fans, San Francisco fans need to panic. But I will say this, it kind of freaks you out a little bit if you're a 49ers fan, because that team has been decimated with injuries. The Chiefs have been decimated with injuries also. I mean, they've been dealing with a lot this year, no question about it. Hollywood Brown might not play this year, though on his live stream he was kind of hinting otherwise. And then for Isaiah Pacheco, he's going to be out for quite some time. And that's 2 big blows for your offense, an offense that you're trying to help drastically improve. Meanwhile, though, the 49ers, I mean, they've been without Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, their tight end, Kittle. Like, they've been dealing with a lot. And meanwhile, the team they just played against, the Rams, and choked, if we're being honest. We've heard that before with the 49ers. They're without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, 2 very good tight ends, wide receivers, pardon me. You also have Cincinnati. They've been dealing with a couple of injuries with Joe Burrow. His wrist, is he still 100%? Is that still an issue with him? And also without T. Higgins, mentioned the Chiefs. You've got injuries going on with some key teams out there, teams that are expected to contend for a championship. And on top of that, offensive production has been down this year. But I'll say it because, and I've said this many times and I'll continue to say it, I think last year was a really good example that injuries are not an excuse. You've got to find a way to make sure that if anything, God forbid, happens to your starters, even your quarterback, you got to find a way to overcome that. And I think the two teams that did that were the Browns and the Bengals from the same division. The Browns, I mean, they went through a carousel of quarterbacks. We all know that. And they eventually fell in love with what they had in Joe Flacco. He ended up winning Comeback Player of the Year. Jake Browning did very well filling in for Joe Burrow in the final, in the second half of the season. They didn't make the playoffs, but they came pretty close. And I think closer than what a lot of people expected, all things considered. So there's never an excuse for injuries in the NFL. There really isn't. The Chiefs, their entire offense was created this year, and so the game plan essentially surrounded Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice very heavily. Like those three guys were supposed to. I mean, you don't ever plan for injuries. You know they're going to happen, but for the Chiefs, Hollywood Brown was supposed to be a big part of your offense this year, and he's not going to be playing. Maybe he plays in January. We don't know quite yet, but the Chiefs are finding a way to move on without him. And I'm not saying that in a negative way towards Hollywood Brown, but they're still finding a way to do things to the point where you have right now Rashee Rice leading the NFL in receptions with 24, just one ahead of Malik Neighbors, who is a rookie for the Giants. And he's also leading the NFL in yards after the catch. Rashee Rice was third in the NFL last year in yards after the catch. So I can't say I'm too surprised to see that he's the league leader in that category, because that is something he did a great job of last year. But man, he has been a huge part of Kansas City's offense this year. And yet Travis Kelce, things just haven't really gone in his favor this year, but no problem. The Chiefs have another weapon to throw to, and that's Rice, which, by the way, I love how, people say, oh, Mahomes was only good without or with Tyreek Hill. Then Tyreek Hill goes, oh, well, Travis Kelce, he's got him. Well, Travis Kelce's off to a quiet start, so there's no Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce's off to a quiet start. What are you going to say now? Oh, he has Rashee Rice, who's a great second-year player. Like, at this point, it's like, okay, Mahomes is doing something. I mean, he's been around long enough to the point where he doesn't have to have explosive players. It'd be nice. Not saying we don't want that, but he'll always find a way to win with somebody. If he did it last year, he can do it any other season. And that's not to say the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl every single year in the Patrick Mahomes era. That's just not realistic. But more times than not, you just can't write this guy off. You can't bet against this guy. And I know Patrick Mahomes has been struggling this year and has had some questionable decision-making throws this season. No question about it. And an interception in every single game so far. But when you look at Rashee Rice and the emergence he's had, 24 catches, leads the NFL in that category. Yards after the catch has 186 yards, leading the NFL in that category. He has 288 receiving yards, leads the NFL in that category as well. He is trailing Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. He's got 338 yards. And on top of that, Rashee Rice has 15 first down receptions. That is third best in the NFL. Chris Godwin of the Bucs has 17. Nico Collins, who I just mentioned, leads the NFL in receiving yards. He's second on that list with first down receptions being 16. So Rice has 15 on the year. Malik Neighbors right behind him with 14, and Devontae Smith of the Eagles right there with 13 on the season. So Rashee Rice, the type of season he's had this year, and that big step up, that's a really huge jump for him, because his rookie year, he was part of an offensive fold that really did fold. It really did. No one was really coming through. It kind of felt like Justin Watson at the midway point last year was your most productive receiver. And that's not a shot at Justin Watson, but it's not really it's far from ideal. It is far from ideal for Justin Watson to be your best wide receiver. Now, what happened as the season went on? Rashee Rice started to grow more and more, and he became the best wide receiver on the team. He ended up owning the NFL record for most receiving yards in a postseason by a rookie. Now, obviously, in order to be able to attain a stat like that, you have to be able to play the entire postseason, and that's exactly what the Chiefs did. So, I mentioned the other day, you don't ever apologize for winning, and if you're able to shatter a record like that, you can't ever apologize for being able to break that kind of record ever. You just don't do that. And to see Rashee Rice make this jump, it's been really huge. And I know in the offseason, Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice have been training a lot together. And I don't know the name of the trainer. They've tagged this person on social media, but they've been spending a lot of time training with that guy. And I don't know how much of an impact he's had on. Obviously, he deserves some credit because you are seeing a much different Rashee Rice. When it comes to like his average yards per catch, last year he had, 11.9 yards per catch. This year it's exactly 12 yards per catch. So you're not seeing a big difference in that category here. We got some breaking news. I'll get to that in a moment here. Bear with me as I try to collect some information on this regarding the Chargers, who the Chiefs play next. But with Rice, you do have that emergence there, and you're seeing guys like Patrick Mahomes try to utilize that. And we'll get to Patrick Mahomes in a moment, kind of because of his comments. And I think what he's saying is something that a lot of the team wants to improve upon. But I think eventually, like, defenses are going to focus more on Rashee Rice. That'll open up the door for Travis Kelce. I think that's really going to be Travis Kelce's big opportunity to kind of break through at some point. And even if defenses don't do that, if defenses continue to double team Travis Kelce the way they have, I still think you can find ways to get him open. I think the Chiefs made a little bit of progress with Travis Kelce yesterday, especially in the second half, getting him more involved. Look, I just think at the end of the day, is his age a part of it? Yeah, for sure. I think it is valid to question as to whether or not this is going to be Travis Kelce's final season. Yeah, TJ is saying that Kelce's the decoy. That's kind of what Tyreek Hill was in some games for the Chiefs, where a lot of defenders just put all their attention on Tyreek Hill, double, even triple teaming him sometimes, which, listen, I would hate to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL. First of all, the rules just suck for defenses in general because it always favors the offense. But even then, like, when you have to, especially now in the NFL, it kind of feels like, and I mean, I just don't want to dismiss what we've had in the NFL in years past, but it just kind of feels like we have more speed at the wide receiver position today. Is that fair to say? Let me know if I'm wrong. Is that fair to say? It just feels like there's a lot more speed with wide receivers this year. And Tyreek Hill is obviously one example of that. So I think it's just very difficult for defenses to even be able to contain that. So I don't even know, like, when the Chiefs did have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins and Mecole Hardman, when, I would argue that Mecole Hardman was probably more productive as a rookie than he is today on offense. But how do you defend all of that? Because Mecole Hardman was supposed to replace Tyreek Hill because there were some question marks as to his off the field incident there. But then it's like, man, you look at the Chiefs, it's like, how in the hell do you defend that team? So I don't know what the right answer is, whether you double or triple team, because I've always said, if you want to double team two guys, okay, I mean, you can, but it's not really going to bode well for you. You want to triple team one guy? Okay, I can understand that, especially someone as dynamic as Tyreek Hill, but it's just not going to be easy to do. Now, obviously, Tyreek Hill's not on the team anymore, but my point here is, I think with the Chiefs and what you have right now, even without Hollywood Brown and Isaiah Pacheco, and we'll see when Kareem Hunt's going to play. We don't have a lot of information on that right now, but it just seems like with the Kansas City Chiefs, they will always find a way. They're always, I can't remember who said this. I want to say it was, oh gosh, someone on Sirius XM said this today. and I apologize. Logan Ryan, I think, was the one who said this. Logan Ryan. He said the Chiefs always find a way, and he's right. And listen, let me just speak for all of you. I think the Chiefs really do find a way to give us a heart attack in these games, which is never ideal. But we said this yesterday, and I think we touch on this more in yesterday's podcast than we have on any other podcast, where you're going to get every team's best shot. The Patriots got exactly that for 18 years. I still remember the Chiefs, because listen, if we're being honest here, when Peyton Manning was dominating with the Colts, when Tom Brady was doing his thing with the Patriots for a period of time, the Chiefs were just not that good of a football team from 2007 to 2012. I know in 2012 Peyton joined the Broncos, but I remember during that time the Chiefs were always viewed as the easy team, and understandably so. They had the worst record in the NFL from 07 to 2012. Maybe one or two teams were just slightly worse than the Chiefs, but they were pretty bad during that stretch. And I do remember when the Chiefs played Peyton Manning, Jared Allen or Tamba Hali would have a great game applying pressure on Manning. And I remember there was one game, I think in 07, I think it was, the Chiefs came very close to pulling off an upset against the Colts. Brody Croyle almost beat Peyton Manning in a game head to head. Those kinds of seasons, it's like, okay, well, that's a moral victory for the Chiefs, because they made it close with the Colts. There was one game too where they made it close a couple of times with the Patriots, and that was viewed as success, because no one's able to give the Patriots or the Colts that kind of trouble back then. Well, now when you're the Chiefs, and again, I think the social media era of sports, and I know I say that a lot, but I think it's true though. I think that's really changed moral victories from fan bases. Moral victories have kind of gone away. It just feels like, because the Ravens, they came within a toe of beating the Chiefs. Well, that's really not enough, especially when you're the Ravens and you were the number one team last year in the regular season. You would have liked to have won that one. You don't want to sit there and say, yeah, well, we almost won by a toe. The Bengals, who, they always, that fan base loves to talk about their head-to-head record against Mahomes, which, funny enough, we don't hear about that anymore, at least in the last 8 days. You're hearing all this talk about how, we came so close and they just ripped our hearts out of our chest. And then with the Falcons, a team that, I don't think a lot of people are picking them to win the Super Bowl, but I think a lot of people thought that they could maybe be a surprise team this year and win the NFC South. And they made it close with the Chiefs. So now I did listen to Sports Talk Radio in Atlanta this morning. They're not really doing the whole moral victory thing. They're ripping Kirk Cousins apart, which, look, I'm not going to get into it too much on this podcast. I've said this before. I just feel like Kirk Cousins gets a really bad rap, and I don't know why. Wherever he goes, Washington, Minnesota, Atlanta, it's just never made sense to me. But it's good to see the Chiefs being in this position where they are. It's unfortunate they've been dealing with injuries, but you know what? So are some of the other top tier teams. All you have to do is move forward and find a way to overcome it, and they have. And Rashee Rice, with his emergence, that has played a big part in that for the Chiefs so far this year. Okay, I did say a few minutes ago there is some breaking news, so we got to get into that right now. There is a suspension that's been handed out. Don't worry, it's not Rashee Rice. Don't worry, that's not going to be coming anytime soon. It's going to come next year for sure. Which, by the way, let me do real quickly. I'll make this fast here, because I listened to a clip of Mike Florio on his podcast, bitch about how he apparently he felt like the Sunday Night Football crew last night did not even bother talking about Rashee Rice facing 8 charges. Listen, it wasn't Sunday Night Football technically, but it was the NBC Sunday Night Football crew. Just 2 weeks ago, this crew was in Kansas City for the season opener against the Ravens. So Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Tony Dungy, Harrison, Chris Sims, Mike Florio, all those people who are part of the NBC NFL crew. they all were talking about Rashee Rice 2 weeks ago. They did it in pregame, and even during the rain delay, the weather delay, they brought it back up again because, during the weather delay, they have to have something to discuss. So and by the way, it's week 1 of the season. That hasn't even started yet, so there's nothing to talk about really. So they just had to kind of recycle some of the same topics, which I understand in a rain delay. It's never easy to do, but they decided to just bring up Rashee Rice again and explain why he's not suspended and talk about the whole situation there. And then during the game, they brought it up again and explained what happened. So I don't really know, what does Mike Florio want at this point? And he even did the whole, I don't want them to, put him in jail and lock the key, throw it away. No. Then what do you want? It was covered very heavily by your own colleagues 2 weeks ago. Now, listen, sometimes I'm on social media or I'm talking to people next to me, so I don't even know, sometimes I just don't pay attention to the announcers completely. So they might say things that I'll miss. Did they mention the Rashee Rice thing? I never heard it yesterday, so I'm going to go no. But again, like I said, I don't pay close attention to them the entire game because I'm doing multiple things while watching the game. Sean said Chris Collinsworth on Rashee Rice. Well, here's a guy. But it's listen, your own crew, they took care of it 2 weeks ago. So, and I understand maybe not everybody was watching then that might have been watching last night, but your colleagues took care of that topic. What else do you want them to say? What more is there? There's no update on this story. I guarantee you when there is an update. So let's say the game this Sunday, it's between the Chiefs and the Chargers. I'm going to take a wild guess and say Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are going to call that game. But let's just go with that for now. We'll find out, I think, tomorrow. If an update comes up in the Rashee Rice investigation, court situation, or court case, they'll bring it up in Sunday's game because that's the way it works. And listen, I think they might allude to it a little bit. You've seen that in the past, so I don't even know at the end of the day, what more do you want? And listen, Florio, the guy is weird sometimes. It's he was that kid on Christmas who he got 60 presents and he wanted 61 and he's upset about it. That's the kind of. Thank you, RC. I appreciate you guys, every single one of you guys. You're awesome. We hit a milestone on Facebook. I've always said my goal is now let's do it on YouTube. So if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the Chiefs Zone podcast on YouTube. I just commented with the link right there, youtube.com/@thechiefszone. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. We're actually streaming this live on YouTube as well. I know a majority of you guys are from Facebook, but there's that link there in case you're not already. Okay, before we interrupted ourselves, let's go back to that Adam Schefter breaking news here because this is significant for Sunday's game between the Chiefs and the Chargers. Safety Derwin James Jr., he has received a 1-game suspension for a repeated violation of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players, including Sunday's game against the Steelers. Okay, what the hell did he do? I mean, I did see the game, but wasn't paying too close attention to it. I'm watching other games here. I want to know what that play was because the NFL this year, okay, let me see what it is. I can't show it on here, but I'll try to give you guys the play-by-play. Gotta mute that. Okay, so there's a ball carrier. Okay, it looks like a helmet-to-helmet hit. Let me just see. They're showing another angle of it. Whoever 88 is for Pittsburgh. Okay, they're showing him on the route. He catches the ball. Derwin James comes in right there, and yeah, that's a helmet-to-helmet hit. Doesn't look scary in real time, without the slow-mo. With the slow-mo, it does look really bad. Listen, I'll say this. I do know the NFL is very, very strict this year on a lot of things, especially when it comes to celebrations. Travis Kelce for so many years has done the bow and arrow celebration. Now he hasn't had a lot of catches, so he hasn't really had an opportunity to celebrate and do the whole bow and arrow thing. But I think Yoshi Vosh did that against the Chiefs, and he got fined for it. you saw in the same game, Xavier Worthy did the double point handgun gesture. And it looked like he did it right in the face. And I actually noticed that in time too. And I'm like, you're getting fined for that, dude. Looks like, two gun hand gestures right there. And you're right in the defender's face. And I'm kind of surprised it was not called for taunting. As much as, everyone wants to complain about the taunting rules, by rule, I thought it should have been called then and there. So the NFL is just very strict on certain celebrations and certain actions here. And then this whole thing with player safety, I think they're just trying to make a statement here where you do this kind of thing. And evidently this is a repeat violation for Derwin James. Yeah, they're going to hit you with that. So Derwin James will not be playing against the Chiefs this Sunday. And that is bad news for the Chargers, because the Chargers, they have already been dealing with a lot. That's another team that's been dealing with injuries, I forgot to mention, including their quarterback, Justin Herbert, whose x-rays came back negative. But man, John Alt got hurt in this game. Or I'm sorry, not John Alt, Joe Alt. I said John Alt last night also. Joe Alt got hurt. Joey Bosa also got hurt. So there's some serious concern as to who might be available. Derwin James is one of your key players, first round draft pick from 2018, and he might not be available for you, or he won't be available for you in this game. So there are some serious question marks with the Chargers right now going into this game. I don't know what the line is. I haven't had a chance to look. I'll do that real quickly. But man, I'm sure it'll shift as the week goes on, especially as we get more and more updates with the Chargers injuries, because they're dealing with a lot. By the way, one other quick note with injuries, because we kind of touched on this last night at the podcast after the game, where Mahomes was doing the QB kneel and it looked like he slipped on one of them. The Chiefs are 8-point favorites. That has to be the biggest spread. I'm just looking across the board here. Okay, so 8-point for the Chiefs. 49ers are favored by 10.5 over the Patriots. I can understand that. So, yeah, the Chiefs do have the second biggest point differential with the spread this week. Okay, Jets are 7-point favorites over the Broncos, so that's the next closest to the Chiefs. So, okay, 8-point favorites, and I'm sure that will change a lot as the week goes on with injury updates and whatnot. So there is that. That's what the Chargers are dealing with right now. Okay. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of comments here also, and I've noticed this while I was talking about Rashee Rice. A lot of you guys are asking about Kareem Hunt. We don't have an update on that yet. I don't even think Andy Reid fielded a question about Kareem Hunt today. And usually, listen, if the media is not going to ask you a question, then teams are more than happy to be silent about it and not say a single word. And I don't want to, just say it's going to be easy game. I thought that, the Chiefs would be able to skate by without Kareem Hunt in this game. Looking back, I kind of wish they had him. And look, I don't know how much of a challenge it is to learn the offense, one that you've played on before. Yes, it's changed over time, but all you're really doing is just getting the handoff or a toss, and maybe you can just have someone else, something like Samaje Perine or Keontae Ingram, run any of the difficult routes on pass catching situations. So I'm not sure at the end of the day, but as much as I'd like to think the Chiefs could do it again, given all the injuries that the Chargers are dealing with, it is a divisional game, and the Chargers and the Chiefs always do play each other very close. So I do think that this would be the week to kind of get Kareem Hunt back. I don't know how much more time he would need to get the offense under his belt and everything, because he's been a part of this before. Again, I know it's been 6 years, but he's familiar with Matt Nagy and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So I don't think, he really needs that much time to catch up. And given the kind of a scary moment too, because Rashee Rice did get hurt in that injury. I don't think he caught another pass the rest of the game. He was targeted, I believe, but didn't have another catch the rest of the game. So it'd be nice to have Kareem Hunt to maybe take the load off Rice a little bit, because, when you utilize Rice the way you have, and again, he's having a great season, you don't want to run that guy to the ground also, especially with all the injuries you've been dealing with. So I do, I agree with you, Bob. I do think we see Kareem Hunt on Sunday make his Chiefs debut in his second stint with the franchise. I mean, man, that's so crazy to me. That is so crazy that the Chiefs got him back. I'm not going to go over it because we went over that plenty last year, but man, that's it's surprisingly to me. And I was thinking about this a couple days ago. I was kind of surprised this was not as big of a deal with the national media, because it was a huge deal when he got cut. That entire weekend, ESPN did a big sit-down interview with him the same weekend he got cut. And I get it. You know, the first couple of weeks, there are so many storylines there. But I was kind of surprised it didn't get the coverage that it got. Tim's asking, when is Clyde Edwards-Helaire eligible to return? He is on IR, and if you're on IR, you have to sit out for at least 4 games. So we are halfway through that timeline, Tim. He's been out the first 2 games. He has to sit out for at least 2 more. And hopefully he'll be available to come back sometime after that. And again, we don't know his situation, why he had to be placed on there. I thought when he did the press conference and when he opened up about, you know, what he was dealing with, I thought he was at a much better place then. But, you know, maybe something came back up and he just wasn't in the right state of mind. So never want to rush anything like that. Hopefully he's been around the team, and hopefully he'll be ready to come back soon, because I do think the Chiefs need him. I think people are coming around a little bit on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know, and again, I know last year's standard is not the best one, but when there wasn't much going on with the offense, Clyde Edwards-Helaire did come through a little bit at times, and I kind of felt like he showed a little bit more toughness. I mean, maybe he got that from being around a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know, but this is a guy that just the first 4 weeks. Yeah, I think I said week 4, but I meant week 5. Yeah, the first 4 weeks he has to sit out, RC. So we'll see what happens there. Any insight on recoveries for Pacheco and Brown? I mean, not really, Jake, outside of what we've already said. Brown is not expected to come back for the regular season. He did do a live stream on Twitch. I don't know why. That's just such a funny name, Twitch. Twitch, whatever video game streaming that he was using. And he did mention that he's going to come back fresh, and he's looking to help the team make a push in the playoffs in January. So take that for what it's worth to you. Pacheco, no, I mean, he had a successful surgery, and he's expected to come back in 2 months. So probably going to be in late November or early December for Isaiah Pacheco there. All right, let's talk about Mahomes for a moment here, because his comments after the game, they're getting a lot of attention, both with the local media and the national media. He spent a lot of time talking about, you know, his struggles and that he hasn't played his best. Travis Kelce's got to get more involved, and he's got to do something about that, which, you know, was kind of interesting, because Kyler Murray made a comment saying, "Oh, well, it's not my job to get Marvin Harrison open." Okay, all right, buddy. So, you know, you see those kinds of things. Let me just say this about Patrick Mahomes. And Bill Belichick was on Pat McAfee's show, and he said this too. We said this last night, responding to Patrick Mahomes' comments. Patrick Mahomes, when you can acknowledge the problems that you're dealing with, that is the first step in trying to improve. It's trying to recognize and acknowledge the issues that you have. When Patrick Mahomes does that, and Bill Belichick mentioned this today on Pat McAfee's show, that kind of thing is going to want to make everyone else around him want to improve. And when Patrick Mahomes says something, okay, well, then all of the other guys on the offense, they're going to hear it, whether they heard it being right next to him or wherever, or maybe they just came across the quote on social media. They know that, okay, Patrick said this. We got to all probably step it up. Patrick says it starts with him. I think, you know, in a way, you're also saying that the rest of the team has got to step up. And you're saying that without saying that, because you don't ever want to throw the team under the bus. That's just not what a leader does. But Belichick, he heavily praised the guys, Mahomes, in his leadership, and saying that's exactly what leaders do. They'll acknowledge what issues they have, and they'll do what it takes to try to turn things around. So we'll see what happens there. Listen, do you really believe the Chiefs are going to stay at this state? No. You know, I go back to 2021, and I know the Chiefs did not win the Super Bowl that year, and fell short of that in the AFC title game against the Bengals. But They reached the AFC title game, hosted the AFC championship game when nobody else expected it. A lot of people were concerned about Patrick Mahomes at the halfway point of the season, to the point where, someone from upstate New York created not a GoFundMe, but a petition. I don't know what I forgot what those petition websites are called, but started a petition that Patrick Mahomes needs to be benched. And it got national attention for that, which was lame because it was just one guy who said it. But that's where it was. I still remember Ryan Clark saying Patrick Mahomes is broken and the Chiefs offense is broken. And Patrick's trainer, Bobby Stroop, let Ryan Clark know about it later in the season when the Chiefs offense really started to turn things around. My point here is we've seen the Chiefs struggle like this offensively before, and it was actually worse because they won the first game and they had to come back and do it against the Browns, and then they lost the next two games against the the Ravens in week 2 by 1 point, and then the Chargers when the Chiefs committed I believe 4 turnovers in that game. So they started the season 1-2. They were 3-4 at one point, last place in the AFC West, and a lot of people actually wrote off the Chiefs for that season. What do? They go on a big surge there. They win 8 straight, win the AFC West, eventually host the AFC Championship game. Just couldn't win the AFC Championship game against the Bengals. And that was more of their own doing because they blew that big game. And I know a lot of people kind of talk about this with Burrow. It's like, hey, his only big moment was coming back in that game. And that was more Kansas City hurting themselves than the Bengals doing anything. And again, you don't ever apologize for that. They still deserve credit for winning, but it's also correct to say that the Chiefs hurt themselves, and that's what allowed the comeback to happen for Cincinnati in that one there. So to me, it's like I like that Patrick Mahomes is having an honest conversation with the media and is saying, hey, look, I've got to be much better. So to me, it's like, okay, he knows. And even if he didn't say it, he already knows. Because his head coach is Andy Reid. And listen, does Andy Reid make mistakes? Yes. But he's also Andy Reid. This guy might go down as the best head coach in NFL history here. I know he doesn't have the same amount of rings as Bill Belichick, but Reid has been able to find success and win a lot wherever he goes. He just didn't win championships until very recently. 2019 is when he started as a head coach to win titles. But he's able to have success with McNabb, with Vic, with Alex Smith, and now more with Patrick Mahomes. So when you look at what the Chiefs have been able to do, and you look at Andy Reid and his success, they'll figure it out. They will. And last year, did they figure it out offensively? No, not really. I mean, Travis Kelce got going in the playoffs and played much better then. But the issues that you had with the drops, the fumbles, the ball security, essentially, they carried over all the way to the Super Bowl. So you still found a way to win, though. So for Patrick to be able to recognize that, I think is very key. And that's a nice little signal. And I think as fans, you appreciate it because you do want to hear it. That's a little sign that, hey, look, we're pissed off at how this thing is gone. I'm not playing my best. Travis is not playing his best. We can do a little bit more to get Xavier Worthy more involved. We'll see it. And listen, he did it without calling out his team. Meanwhile, look at Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders. He just threw his entire team under the bus by saying that, everyone on the team, they're kind of playing for themselves. Oh, Buffalo's going for it on 4th and 3. They have the wide open. Man, that throw to the left, the Chiefs did that a few times. I remember Buffalo did that a lot against the Chiefs in that playoff game last year. Which was crazy because Buffalo did not have a big play in that entire game. They did not have a play over 18 yards against the Chiefs in the playoffs, but that play did work a lot. And they continue. That's one thing you got to be ready for when you play Buffalo. That nice little short throw to the left. That and they always have a lot of green grass ahead of them. No defenders there. Antonio Pierce will be gone midway this season. I told you guys, like I said it when he got hired and became the full-time head coach. The same Raiders fans who think he's turning things around are the same ones who are going to be calling for his job within his first year. I mean, I don't think Raiders fans are doing that yet, But boy, the Boo Birds came out, and Davante Adams. Listen, I watched the Netflix series, and I understand the Netflix series receiver. There's a lot of editing involved. We had Brody Coyle on the podcast a couple of months ago, and Brody was telling us about Hard Knocks and how they kind of edited things to make things not seem like the way they were. Specifically, one where he's waiting for his wife to pick him up, and they made it look like his wife was really late to get him at the airport when that's not at all what happened. So I can understand, when you watch a show like Receiver, there's some editing involved, but you can't edit someone to say certain things. You just can't. Davante Adams looked like he did not want to be with the Raiders. I mean, is that a guy that looks like he seriously misses Aaron Rodgers? Because it was weird. That offseason right there, and I don't mean to go back to Tyreek Hill, but Davante Adams first got traded to the Raiders. That was the domino effect, and Tyreek Hill leaving the Chiefs, which, coincidentally in the same division. So that was a massive win. That was Las Vegas Super Bowl right there to get Davante Adams and to chase Tyreek Hill out of the AFC West. But it didn't matter because the Raiders have not been able to do anything since then. So it's been kind of a weird little ride for the Raiders. So I don't really know what that's going to look like. Josh says, are the Vikings a real deal? I would have said no. I would have said no before this week. You guys, I am in on the Vikings bandwagon. I am all for it. I actually picked the Chiefs to play the Vikings in Super Bowl 57 right before the playoffs started because I was so high on the Vikings and the type of season they were having. And I think it's no secret by now. I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. He was on the team back then, not right now. But look, this is a team, and I said this before. JJ McCarthy was the rookie quarterback I was excited to see the most. And unfortunately, we just did not see. We didn't get a chance to see him this year. So Sam Darnold comes in. Sam Darnold, good luck. Well, they beat the Giants. Okay, it's not really too impressive. They beat the 49ers. Okay, got my attention now. They dog-walked the Texans, a team that I think the Chiefs will meet in the AFC Championship game. And that Texans team, man, they're good. CJ Stroud is making that big jump from his rookie year to his sophomore year, and I think he's going to do a lot of good things for that Texans team this year. For Sam Darnold to do what he did yesterday, that was impressive. 4 touchdowns, played well against the 49ers also. Him and Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is really a special football player. He really is. I do think it's between him and Tyreek Hill as the best wide receivers in the NFL today. But boy, the Vikings, I do really think they are the real deal this season. I do think they're going to. I don't know if they're going to win their division. I'm not too impressed by Detroit so far this year. I do think the Cardinals blew a lot of opportunities to come back and win that football game. But man, I'm just looking at the NFC North. Look at some of these division leaders. The Vikings are 3-0 in the North. The Saints are 2-1, tied with the Bucks. The Seahawks are 3-0. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, Rams, and 49ers are all 1-2. You look at the AFC side of things, the Bills are 2-0, possibly will be 3-0. I still think a lot of people kind of dismiss them because of all the turnover they had this offseason. Pittsburgh is 3-0. That might be the biggest surprise of the year. And they're doing it with Justin Fields, not Russell Wilson. And meanwhile, you have the Ravens and the Browns at 1-2. The Bengals will probably be 1-2 also by the time tonight's over with. So you have, you have a lot of surprises here to kind of start off the season. The Vikings and the Steelers to be 3-0 in their divisions, and not just being 3-0, especially the Steelers. They've got a significant lead to start off. The Vikings, they don't have as big of a lead, but if they continue to do what they do, I think they might seriously give Detroit a run for their money, and maybe not just that, they might even steal the division this year from Detroit. I thought the Packers were going to be that team this year, but Jordan Love expected to come back maybe sooner than expected. That might be a very interesting race in the North. We'll see what Caleb Williams does, but I'm not really holding my breath on Caleb Williams right now. But I'm really excited to see that NFC North. What do you think about the Cowboys the last 2 weeks? This is a good question from Lauren, but I'm going to adjust the question a little bit. Forget about the last 2 weeks with the Cowboys. Let's just talk about the Cowboys in general with Dak Prescott here. Because he just became the highest paid player in NFL history. But what is realistically, what is the goal with Dak Prescott? The goal for every team is to win the Super Bowl. Every single team wants to win the Super Bowl. So my question isn't, what's the goal? No. I want to know, what is the realistic expectation for the Dallas Cowboys? Because right now, this is a team that got their ass kicked by Derek Carr and the Saints. And Derek Carr and the Saints, they kind of took a little bit of a backseat last week in their game. I still think, they're a team to beat. But, man, the Cowboys looked awful against the Saints. And then yesterday against the Ravens, and I know the Cowboys rallied. I don't think the final score is really a true indication of how close that game was. I stand by that. I really do. Dallas has a lot to work on. And even going back in that game against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, what was it? It was like a 27-0 or a 28-0. What the hell just happened? Did they have an PAT blocked? I saw the touchdown, but okay, I guess they missed. They had a missed PAT or a block. I'm waiting for the replay. James Cook scored. He's been really good for them this year. I guess they're not going to show the replay on that. So with the Cowboys, it's just like, I don't know if Dak's the guy. And you just pay. What's his playoff record? Like 2-5? And again, you don't ever apologize for winning, but one of those wins was against Tom Brady and the Bucks, and that was a Tom Brady that sucked. Like, everyone knows about his year. The only reason they made the playoffs is because the NFC South is terrible. So what does Dak Prescott have on his postseason resume? Because I'm struggling to even remember the team the Cowboys beat with Dak Prescott. I can't think of it right now. I just can't. Maybe one of you guys can help me, remind me, but I just can't think of it right now. PAT was blocked. Okay, thank you, Auntie Vic. Hot take: Giants are better than the Cowboys right now. I don't know. I mean, they looked nice yesterday. They definitely did. And the Browns, kind of like the Cardinals, they kept getting stops, but were not able to capitalize and take advantage of opportunities there. I would still take the Cowboys over the Giants without any hesitation. But RC, feel free to remind me of that when I look like an idiot and a fool when the Giants beat the Cowboys, because that's always how those things work. I just don't know, like, again, what's the realistic expectation for the Cowboys? Because I don't think Dak Prescott's the guy, and you just paid him a shit ton of money when, and you see, now you guys are getting me fired up here, because this whole thing with paying quarterbacks, I get it. I mean, owners are losing this battle by a long, it's not even close. And quarterbacks are always getting whatever they want. I mean, you have Trevor Lawrence, who at one point was the highest paid, tied with Joe Burrow. And that guy's done nothing other than, one come from behind win in the playoffs. That's it. That is it. Justin Herbert got paid. Tua got paid. And that guy's maybe not 0-2 in the playoffs, but he hasn't won a playoff game for them. Like, come on. How weak are these owners that they're just like, yeah, whatever you say, we'll do? I mean, at some point, the owners have got to say, listen here. And listen, I understand the measuring stick cannot be Patrick Mahomes, because we're very fortunate with what we have in Patrick Mahomes. The dude is insane. We've been crying for a quarterback for so many years, and we just now got the most talented one ever. So Patrick Mahomes, to be used as the measuring stick, is, maybe not fair. But at the same time, it's like, look, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you kind of have to beat him. So look, I've heard people say this already. There are going to be a lot of good quarterbacks that will never win a Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes exists. It's kind of like this in the UFC and boxing. You might be a great fighter in your division, and there might be a couple of other great fighters in that same division, but there are just a couple of other guys who are even better than you, and they'll be in the title contention instead of you because they're just that much better than you, even if it's just a little bit. And something like Neil Magny in the UFC, for those of you who know, he's not a big name in the UFC, but he was a great fighter in his prime, but he was in a very heavily crowded division where he could not really make some noise and make his name stand out because there were just guys who were slightly better than him. That's kind of how it works right now. Gardner Minshew benched for Aiden O'Connell. Is that your opinion or is that news? Look, the Raiders have a lot of shit. The quarterback is like the last issue they have. Dak beat the Seahawks in 2019 and then lost to the Rams. Okay, thank you. I do not recall that. I just don't. Oh, like during the game? Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if that's how it's going to be moving forward, though, Gwen. So we'll see, though. Since we're already talking about the NFL, I think this is a good time to just go ahead and continue our Week 3 roundup here. Just looking at some of the other games across the board, the Packers looked pretty good. I felt bad for Will Levis, and maybe it's because the draft was in Kansas City and we were just so focused on that because he was at Union Station and his sisters and girlfriend, they were all like really bummed out he didn't get drafted. And you see that every year in the draft, someone who expects to go and doesn't go, and the cameras keep showing them every other draft pick. But I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think the Titans made a massive mistake firing Mike Vrabel. Like, really, a big mistake firing Vrabel. And I think it's showing right now with their record at 0-3. They've been one of the more uncompetitive football teams. So not looking really good for them. The Eagles, boy, they really had to rally in this one. So it was 3-0 going into the fourth quarter. Then you have the Saints scoring 9 points, the Eagles scoring 15 points. That was kind of a weird one there, but hey, they found a way. Jalen Hurts has kind of been up and down. He's kind of like at a Mahomes level where he is making plays, but he's also committing some turnovers this year. Saquon Barkley, man, that might seriously be their savior on this football team. If the Eagles are going to win the NFC East, it's going to be because of Saquon Barkley this year, which is crazy because Jalen Hurts was in the MVP discussion with Patrick Mahomes a couple of years ago, and it just seems like Jalen Hurts has really taken a big step back. The Broncos got their first win of the year doing it with Bo Nix. He looked really good. And this was against a Tampa Bay team that looked really good to start off. I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield. I think, I don't feel bad for a lot of athletes. I felt bad for him and how he really got screwed over in Cleveland, and Carolina didn't work out. He was a temporary guy for the Rams until Stafford came back, which he already knew about the Rams thing, but boy, I mean, playing for 3 different teams in one season, just never that just, you can't ever prepare for that. And not that he played for the Browns when he was with them in the offseason preparing and all of that. So I'm really curious to see what happens there with the Raiders. We kind of went over the Raiders a little bit, but with the Panthers, listen, Andy Dalton's been a good quarterback. I know he did it. What was he, 0-3 or 0-4 with the Bengals in the playoffs? And, there was a nice little moment with him and Marvin Lewis reuniting, catching up on the sidelines there. I didn't realize this. We kind of went over this last podcast or last week's podcast. I did not realize how long Marvin Lewis stayed. I thought there was someone in between Lewis and Zach Taylor, but no, Marvin Lewis was with them for a very, very long time. And unfortunately couldn't get a playoff win there, but I'd like to see the Panthers continue to win games with Andy Dalton. I think it's a nice story. By the way, Andy Dalton, we kind of talked about how offenses are down in the NFL. Andy Dalton is the only quarterback this year to throw for 300 yards and have 3 touchdown passes in a game this year. Obviously, we have 2 games to go tonight. The Bills have already started, but boy, That is how bad offenses have been this year in the NFL, where Andy Dalton is doing something great that no one else has done. Not Rodgers, not Mahomes, not Allen, not Burrow, no one. But Andy Dalton. That is crazy. I do have to ask about the Miami Dolphins. And look, I know that Tua's not playing here, but are the Dolphins in serious trouble? Because even with Tua, what was the problem with the Dolphins last year? They couldn't beat a team with a winning record until late December. They beat the Cowboys. And they were putting up a lot of points. Remember, they put up 60, 70 on the Broncos last year. And then, they were getting ready to play Kansas City, who just lost to the Broncos. The Dolphins ran into a brick wall there. And then they met them again in January for the playoffs and couldn't get anything going there either. Look, I like Mike McDaniel. I really, really do. Like, if Andy Reid was not the head coach of the Chiefs, like if he retired today, Mike McDaniel would be on my short list of coaches that I would want in Kansas City. Mike Vrabel would be my number one guy. Mike McDaniel would probably be number two for me. But I truly do believe he's on the hot seat right now. I really do. Not that I think the players hate him or anything, but if you're just not figuring it out by this time, especially with all the talent you have, and again, I know you got a backup, but you already had these issues beforehand. So I'm very curious to see what happens with Mike McDaniel as the season goes along here. Let me see. Was there another game I wanted to go over? I already mentioned 49ers and the Rams earlier, so I don't want to really touch on that too much. No, just I covered everything. I'm sure I'll have some reactions to the Bills and the Bengals because those two teams are definitely going to be teams that the Chiefs could possibly face one, maybe even both of them in the playoffs. Obviously, the Chiefs will face the Bills later this year. Could be one of the first of two matchups potentially. So we'll see on that. But those are really all the thoughts I have when it comes to the Week 3 roundup here. Kind of like Derek Carr, sometimes it's just not a good fit. Then they go to a new team and excel. John says, yeah. The best year of the Raiders was the last year with Derek Carr. Yeah, I mean, they were solid that year. Well, actually, that last year was not really that good with Derek Carr because they just kept blowing big leads in so many games, including that 17-0 one against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Lauren says Dolphins are in big trouble. They won't be beating the Bills consistent. No. Records is terrible against the Bills since Josh Allen showed up. Yeah, and that's unfortunate because they've invested so much in who they have with Tyreek Hill and Tua, and it's not working out at all. Gwen says as long as it's not Gruden. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of interesting when Gruden was with the Chiefs in training camp. I think we need Eric the Enemy back, Pamela said. Okay, either you are trying to throw shade at Eric Bieniemy or autocorrect really got the best of you on that one. I'm going to assume autocorrect got you on that one, which is okay. It happens to me too. Eric the Enemy. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. Eric the Enemy. That's funny. No, his name is Eric Bieniemy. Listen, I'm a huge fan of Eric Bieniemy. I think it's absolutely stupid that he was never hired as a head coach. Why? Because you're around Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey. Like Josh McDaniels was surrounded by Tom Brady for so many years and got a head coaching job. I know the Raiders job he got, Brady was not there. It was Mac Jones, but McDaniels did verbally accept a head coaching job with the Colts, and he was with Brady back then also. So McDaniels did technically get two head coaching jobs when he was the offensive coordinator with Tom Brady as the quarterback. So if Josh McDaniels can get those kinds of offers, why can't Eric Bieniemy? And listen, I know a lot of people are saying, well, bad teams were interviewing him. Yeah, when you don't have a head coach, it's because you fired them because they were terrible. When a team fires someone, it's because they were bad. So listen, it kind of got to the point for me, like I felt bad for Eric Bieniemy. I didn't care if it was the Raiders or the Broncos or the Chargers. I wanted Eric Bieniemy to get a job, like that, a head coaching job. It's honestly ridiculous he never got one. Why? Because of the talent he's surrounded by? That's not his fault. And, I still think the jury's out on Matt Nagy and his second stint as the Chiefs OC, but I do think that, Eric Bieniemy was a better offensive coordinator here in Kansas City. I don't think there's any question about it. So hopefully he gets an opportunity. I don't follow college football very closely. I just watch the games casually. But hopefully, is UCLA? What's the UCLA situation? Because that is where he is. That's where he's the offensive coordinator. Or they're 1-2. They scored 16 points against Hawaii. They scored 13 against Indiana, 17 against LSU. See, when he was the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, and he took that job because he had to prove himself away from Mahomes, how the hell are you supposed to prove yourself with Sam Howell as your quarterback? Seriously, like, how is anyone supposed to win with that? And listen, I don't know Ethan Garbers. I don't know who he is or what the expectation is with him. Apparently, he's not very good. He's got 3 touchdowns and 4 picks, 8 sacks. I don't know, man. I think Eric Bieniemy's really getting the shaft from these teams just because of his surroundings in Kansas City. I hate that. I really do. Get all the info you can to win. John Gruden did good with the Raiders. He got shafted for something he should have never got fired for. I get where you're coming from, Jacob, and I know there's this big cancel culture talk here. Yeah, Antonio Pierce got a job over Eric Bieniemy. Explain that one to me. Joe freaking Judge got a job over Bieniemy. Like, come on. But Jacob, to go back to your comment here, listen, I keep saying the social media era that we're in with sports. Public relations is a bigger deal today than it was 20 years ago. And I think with John Gruden's comments and some of the struggles you were seeing there, I just think, I just think it was time to go. I hated that it happened to him. I think in the moment he made some comments, maybe in the heat of the moment. We've all done that kind of thing before. But you say those things, well, then don't be surprised when you have to suffer the consequences for it. He technically wasn't fired. He was forced to resign, so that way the Raiders didn't have to pay him. So yeah, I mean, he got fired, but legally was not a firing. Patrick Mahomes is the offensive this coach. I mean, he does seem like he has a little more control with certain things, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I know, guys like Tom Brady, LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, those kinds of athletes. Oh, nice. I thought he had a touchdown there. Josh Allen, that is. I know star players, they tend to get, some freedom and can kind of have control of things. I don't like that. You be the player and let the coaches be the coach. I don't care how great you are. That's just my opinion. Do I think Gruden will be back? Listen, if there's anyone that can give an endorsement, it's Andy Reid, which he did. Andy Reid did give that endorsement when Gruden was there for a few days as like a visiting coach. Or I don't know what title you really want to give there. A visitor, essentially. I do think he'll be back. When you have a guy like Andy Reid in your corner, that's a really good guy to have in your corner. I think your odds of being able to come back in the NFL certainly will go up here. Okay, how about I react to this goal line situation with the Bills with you guys, and then I'll get out of here. Okay, so the Bills, looks like they lost a yard on that one there. By the way, speaking of losing yards, I can't believe the referees made the Falcons lose 3 yards on 4th and inches. Can you guys believe that? Man, those referees really do have a lot of control. The referees, they keep throwing the ball to Rashee Rice. That's why he leads the NFL in receptions and is second in receiving yards. What else did the refs do in this game yesterday? So many things the refs just have control over. Oh, yeah, the Falcons only scoring 3 points at home in the second half. Yeah, it's bad. Man in motion, looking to his left, then looks straight, wants to run, almost got sacked, goes to his right now, can't find anyone, throws it. Oh, he's got a touchdown in the corner there. Hey, good throw. Really good throw by Josh Allen there. I don't know who that is that he threw the touchdown pass to. I've got a small little screen here, so I can't really tell, even with my glasses. But, yeah, Josh Allen does a good job of that. Who is that? Dalton Kincaid. That's who it was. Dalton Kincaid, one of his tight ends. So, Yeah. Oh, Phantom roughing the pass. Listen, I've kind of had mixed opinions on that one. But I don't know. Look, when the ball is out of the quarterback's hands and when the defender grabs the quarterback, spins him down, they're going to do it. They're always going to throw the flag there. Always. So that's just the way it works out sometimes. Hey, appreciate you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugian. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Please make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/@the-Chiefs-Zone. If you guys haven't done so already, please follow me on Facebook as well. All of the social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, all of those places there, Threads. Let your friends know. Spread the word. I appreciate all of you guys commenting, reacting, and also sharing the posts. That really has helped us a lot over the last few weeks, especially with football season up and running. So please continue to do that. Greatly appreciate all of you guys who have been doing all of that and watching all of that stuff. Really appreciate all of you guys. All right. Enjoy your Monday Night Football doubleheader. I'm out.